So you already hit on
$200 a
something
year.
there. You already hit on something there, David, which is there is a threat and there is the perception regarding the threat. So a threat, an object, may be very threatening to some and not very threatening to others. So
Right.
that in and of itself, it's already inviting us to ask the question, what is a threat? How do I perceive it? And is there a difference between an actual threat and my perception of it? So how do I triage every object that I see into possible threats? And of course, Rami, you said it yourself, knowledge, previous knowledge. So the more I know about that object, call it threat or non-threat or whatever it is, the more I know about that object, the more I better perceive it. And then I can then critically, intelligently, rationally go, this is not a threat, or it's not going to be a threat until XYZ. So it's the management, in a sense. This invites to ask us the question, how do I manage my perceptions about objects, and how do I manage my anxiety, my attention, my stuff regarding each one of them?
All right.
That's the first question.
It's Rami. And do you prefer Louis?
It's not
or
Rami,
Luis?
it's Rami.
That's right.
Rami, okay.
Rami, yeah. And do you provide what's your preference, Louis or Luis?
I've given up on that one because I've been called so many different things that, you know, as long as it says Lou, if you start with Lou, I know you're talking about me.
It's Del Pino. Del Pino, not Del Pino.
Del Pino.
So first question is, how do I properly perceive things so I am able to know if they are a type 1 threat, type 2 threat? That's
where type 1 is paper and type 2 is significant and imminent.
Yes, the clear and present danger versus, you know, generic danger. Watch out for this, you know, this item. The second one is like, watch. Well, it's another question. You know, some people you talk to them, some people, and they say, no, you shouldn't worry about this. All you need to do is do that and then the other. That's not a big deal. Some people will ask you, is it a problem to eat lettuce before having coffee? They're asking you a question. You know, they're worried about that. And you're going like, well, in my knowledge, no, it's no big deal. So what is an important question for somebody is not as important for one. So at the end of the day, we have to decide individually how we perceive objects and how we classify them as threats or friends or foes or opportunities or challenges. So that's very important because it is inviting us to do critical thinking, knowledge, rationality. What do I know about this? I don't know shit about this. Okay, well, I should, because it's bothering me. I don't know about this, so I need to study into it. See?
Good morning, Mike.
Mike.
We're discussing 3 levels of anxiety causers, and the 3 that have been defined by Luis from listening to a French psychoanalyst is
a philosopher.
Philosopher, thank you, who maybe has some tie to psychoanalysts. I don't know.
Without a doubt.
Okay. We're imagined threats, material threats, and then threats of the unknown. These are the 3 classified threats that we're discussing. And let me take what I used for the prior, and I brought up the idea of the utility of prior knowledge. So in the case that you first brought up, Lou, was the do I need to change my tires now, or can I get a few weeks out of them before one of them blows? You've got the penny test. You can take a penny and you can stick it in the thread, and if the thread comes up, when you stick it in the gap, if the thread comes up over the top of Lincoln's head, then you know you've got enough thread. you can go a while longer.
Yeah.
You can use the bars too.
The bars are that measurement. When the thread equals the bar, you should definitely change it. Although if you go to a tire business, they'll say you shouldn't wait that much because you're already in big trouble by then.
But
then
in that case
you
too,
see the guy where you don't see the bar, you don't see the thread, you see the metal stuff at the top. So again, each one has to decide what is, and that's the point. You
True.
individually need to decide what is a threat, how acute it is or not, and then you need to make the difference. And this is the real exercise: is this an objectivized threat, or is this a non-objectivized threat? And we're talking about this existential malaise, this feeling of I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't have a real object, which I think is ultimately what gets people being afraid of nothing, no object whatsoever. And if you don't know what you're afraid of, you're in big trouble, because how do you deal with that? And is there a solution to that problem?
Well, I look at it differently in a way. You ask how we all break things down, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm born into a world of environmental habituation. And the thing is, depending upon my age and experience will determine the habitat that I've grown up into and come to exist in. So like when I was very young and relating to your situation there, I didn't know anything about the tires. So I'd run the tires until they actually, like you said, bald. But then it wasn't until I got older that I realized that, hey, that's a pretty dangerous thing to do. So my environment that I was in at the time, and my own experience of things, caused me to believe that. Now, there's the other option too, that in life that, my dad would take and say, hey, you can't run your car on bald tires. So, the thing is, when they get down to a certain point, you need to get them fixed. And that there's, once again, from a different source. One is from learning what actually is there, and the other is listening to what people tell you to do.
Yeah.
The only thing is, sometimes people tell you what to do is not right. But the thing is, one thing that never fails is reality. When you come to realize something truly exists, and it really applies to you, because if you don't fix it, something's going to happen. So
you brought a good question there. Is the attainment of knowledge, the increase of knowledge, does it bring more stress or less stress? You said just a second ago that when you were young, you didn't know about the threads. You just ran the car until you lost the tire. Maybe you laughed about it afterwards, or you got like, okay, I got a wake-up call. But we could ask in philosophical terms also, does the attainment of knowledge increase stress because we're more aware of things and how we should do them, and we pay more attention, and we are more cognizant of the possible threats? Or because we know more, we know how to deal with those threats, and we have less stress? What do you think about that? Do you feel more stressed now than you were when you were 15?
No, I don't feel as stressed now as I did then, but the only thing is, let me give you another example. I grew up on a farm, and the thing is, we became aware of moving parts in the machinery and stuff like that. And I remember one time there was a kid that lived in the community that I grew up in, and he used to bale hay. And the thing is, he got sucked into the baler and become a bale of hay. And when you hear things like that and you visualize them, because you know the equipment that you're working with and how that could happen, all of a sudden that there becomes something very, very real, to where you become much more aware of the things that you're doing, so that doesn't happen to you. There's several different things, like I say, within the environmental habitation of each one of us that causes us to learn. But that learning and that understanding from all of us is very different from each other, because each one of us has exposed different things to life.
That's
And
for
when
sure.
we try to take and generalize what is right or wrong, or true or false, it becomes very difficult to take and put them together because of each person's experience of understanding is so completely different.
Mhm.
So their environmental habituality is very different that creates them. And to me, more than anything, I find interesting is to take and ask questions that say take and lead to a division there as to separating reality from, just what somebody says that may not be true. Because we end up living in our lives a whole lot, from, people living, taking in things that are what other people say, but in reality, they don't exist. And you could take the COVID situation, I mean, there's everything applies to this almost, and it creates a fear within people. Right now, a lot of people are, terrified of this thing with the COVID. They still are. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse. So, I don't know. It's something that's there, that's in everybody's life, and each person has to take and decide. But the more information that each individual can get, okay, the better their decisions are going to be.
I agree with that. I agree with that. There's no doubt about it. So you answered my question in the sense that the more knowledge you have, although you know more threats.
No, knowledge, I wouldn't say that. Knowledge is not a good thing. Knowledge to me is a bad thing. Understanding is a great thing, because when you understand something, you take and you see it and
well,
you live it.
wait a minute. Let me ask this question.
Like somebody
what is the difference between understanding and knowledge?
Huh?
We seem to have a semantic problem here. What is the difference between understanding and knowledge?
Oh, real simple. Somebody tell you something, just like they say, hey, don't, check your tires. And you say, okay, I'll check my tires to see if I got the bar in the tires. Okay. But you really don't give a rat's ass about it. But then all of a sudden you have a flat tire, and it's caused from wearing the tire too thin. And then all of a sudden you truly understand it because you've lived the experience. You understand completely the importance of having that tire fixed.
Okay, so what you're saying is there's a difference between knowledge and applied knowledge. Theoretical knowledge and applied knowledge, right?
That's your perception, you know what I mean? But I mean, my perception is, I use the words understanding and knowledge. It's two different things.
That's exactly, okay, so that's what I was trying to understand, because we use words and sometimes we don't use the word in the same way, but I understand what you're saying. It's like, okay, you know that you have to change the tire, but you don't change it. So the knowledge is not good for you because you didn't understand what you knew. In a sense, I would make a distinction there. You didn't act according to your knowledge. So that means that either you have knowledge, but it's not good for you.
You have knowledge, but no experience, what it amounts to.
Right. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. So
experience to it, you have understanding. And that
so
applies
let's not,
to a lot of different
let's not talk about knowledge then. Let's talk about understanding. With more understanding, do we get less stress? I think that's what you were saying. Okay. So I agree with that. The more I understand, the less stress I have.
Right.
How does one understand things without knowledge?
Well, if I understand David properly, it's an practical application of theoretical knowledge.
Yeah, let me give you an example of that, Jairo. Okay, right now they're saying that that Black people need a certain, have reparations, so to say, and the white people are white supremacists. Okay, that's knowledge of people that put something out, and if you pick that up and you believe that, okay, that becomes a part of your knowledge base in your life. But the thing is, you see, when I hear that, I think about my own family, and I have a granddaughter that's half Black and half white. I have a niece that's half Black and white. And I ask myself, well, which part of them is white and which part of them is Black in order to take a stand on one side of this or the other? Okay. So I have an understanding that, hey, they're people, and it doesn't make any difference what color the person's skin is. They're human beings. And so therefore, it may be somebody's knowledge that there's a difference between Black and white, but to me, it's not. I understand that they're people, and no matter what the color of their skin are, they're still people. And so it doesn't bother me it does bother me to hear this, because it shows that somebody's, that's a concern for them and that they're taking a position on that. And that's exactly what knowledge does. And what it does is when you have a position on one side, there's always the other side that creates conflict and angst and anger. So,
Oh,
when you take and have understanding of something, you look at things in a different way, and it doesn't
oh, so
create.
you have to have right knowledge or right understanding, because you could
Very
have
good.
the wrong knowledge or the wrong, or maybe knowledge
Samaditi.
depends on the narrative, right? It
Well,
depends
the
on
thing
your
is, everything,
perspective.
it's
It
sort
might
of
be right for some people and wrong for others, or
absolutely,
it,
because it
it
all
might be
depends
a
upon
conflict.
it depends upon a person's own understanding of their own environmental habituation. It all depends what they, like you take a person in a past era who watches CNN, they're going to have one ideal of politics, and then you watch another person watches, say, Fox, they're going to have another ideal of politics.
What
Okay,
happens when you watch both?
when you watch both, well, then the thing is you get an understanding of both sides, as long as, but the thing is, even with that though, each person has to do their own investigation and come to their own reality to create their own environmental habituation. Otherwise, they're just accepting somebody else's as their own. It's
But
simple.
hopefully when you watch both, you realize both are wrong.
Well, the thing is, you can't say that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all, Jairo. I think there's qualities within the people on the left, and I think there's qualities with people on the right. The only thing
You
is
could
separating out
average
the,
them out,
huh?
or maybe you could average them out, or
It's
see,
not,
okay, they might be right here.
Separating the
might be
grain from the
wrong here.
chaff.
yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. Just like, is everybody here familiar with the Great Reset? Supposedly it's coming about.
Is
Anybody
that
know? Huh?
is that like is that what was another term that you used before that, about culture or something,
What?
or 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 like what is it, when you're censoring, or people are censoring each other, or
Yeah,
there's
but
no.
people censor all the time. I mean, the thing is, we're brought up to censor other people. Just like if you're brought up into a certain, to say, environmental habituation where all the family goes to church and everything. Okay, the thing is, if somebody comes and says, hey, there's no God, then you're going to censor that person because you've been taught that there is a God. And you've been taught all the things that have been in your environment. So the thing is, you're not going to look at that. You're going to avoid that until they get to the point to where something causes you to ask a question within inside of yourself, and then you take and start to explore that. Then you start to gaining understanding about that situation. But in the meantime, when you're young, you just absorb everything that's in your environment, and that becomes a part of your life and a part of your world. The same way if you just watch CNN or if you just watch Fox, either way, I mean, that would become part of your reality, and that would be your come to knowledge that turns into understanding that you things that you react on. I mean, it's just the way it is. So the thing is, to me, the key is to go to the, if you're going to take and truly look for understanding from this whole thing, is to look at the habituation, because the things that you believe that have been, I call them habituated into you, that you've repeated so many times that they're reality, to look for those things inside of your life that maybe have been falsely put in there. It's the only way anybody ever changes.
But
Period.
there was a phrase used before the Great Reset that has to do with I guess a certain group kind of shutting out another group. I don't know. Well,
Well,
something
that's
about
right.
culture.
That's what they want to do, is they want to take and have what they call a new world order, where everybody takes and thinks the same and acts the same, and that there is being pushed right now. It's getting pushed through your technology companies, Facebook and Google, because certain things you can go on there and Google, and the thing is, you cannot find the answers that you're looking for. That's why a lot of people have gone to DuckDuckGo, because they don't do that. They try to locate you the information that you're looking for, but Google no longer does. and then they censor people on their platform that is in opposition to the things that they believe. Well, to me, the thing is, without looking at both sides, there's no way a person can really get an understanding of what's happening and relate that understanding to actually what's happening in their own life. You know, and that's a very unfortunate
Oh,
thing.
it came to me, cancel culture.
Yeah.
Is that's something else, isn't it?
No,
Compared
well,
to the Great Reset.
the cancel culture, they try to put that onto the left. Once again, it's one of those things that, I don't quite believe that it's a left type of thing, because the thing is, the cancel culture applies, when people are very young. If you grew up in an atheistic family, in an environment, okay, the thing is, you're going to take and look at that there's no such thing as God, and you're going to take in and absorb all that environment that's been habitually put into your mind as part of your life, and you're going to believe that. So, the thing is, by teaching young children certain things and everything, people's lives can be totally influenced. And this here goes something that just isn't now, but this goes back thousands and thousands of years. It goes, back to before the Greek culture, before the Hebrew cultures. Ever since people come up with language, this has been a problem. This has been something that exists because people want to take and control other people. And the thing is, right now, we're in a world global situation where everybody wants a one world government. I shouldn't say everybody, but many people do want a one world government. So therefore, you have to take and have everybody have the same currency, the same understanding, the same knowledge being taught, and a lot of the same things. But the thing is, then you have to take and question that. Is that really real? Is, just like the idea of white people being extremists and taking advantage of black people. Well, the thing is, that may be true, but the thing is, it doesn't mean that, we have to think that way and be that way, because if we do, we no longer understand the reality of people when, a black person and a white person get together and have sex, and then a new baby is born, and even as far as new children, like right now, they're saying that once the child comes out of the womb, and the thing is, they're still living, that, you can actually get rid of them now, genocide. I mean, our genocide is
Who
really
is
coming
this?
strongly into our country.
Who is this who wants a world monoculture? I'm not sure who these people are.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to
okay.
send them an email.
Hmm?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, okay. George Soros is one. So is Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy that owns the company. What is it?
Have you ever talked to them?
Facebook.
Have I ever?
Now,
No, but I.
how
No,
do
but
you know they want this
because
world
it's
monoculture?
all
I've never
published
heard
in
this said about them.
it's published, Mike, in a what they call some kind of a world journal or whatever. When
I
they
want to
made
talk to the guy,
who?
George Soros, or those guys. I want to talk to them. I don't want to read somebody writing
Oh,
about them,
you.
because I don't know if I want to talk to them
Oh,
before I
you can
make up
talk
my
to
mind.
Bill Gates.
Well,
Bill
then the
Gates
thing is,
is
the thing
having
is,
a Zoom meeting.
really, the thing. First of all, it's not a concern for you, I don't think, Luis, and because
That's
otherwise,
for sure.
right. So the thing is, you see, there's no way that you would ever look into this. So the thing is, there's no way you could ever have any knowledge or anything that could lead to understanding about it. But let
Yeah.
me explain to you one thing. Another thing that maybe be more relative would be the finances, our financial situation in this country. It's like we depend upon the dollar to take and transact, values, our personal values of what we're capable of doing, and so on and so forth. Okay, the thing is, right now there's a move to, go to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So the thing is, you see, like the dollar is actually a form of money that comes from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not actually owned by our federal government, but is contracted to provide money and a means of, money supply in order for people to, transact, values, their own personal values. Okay. So the thing is, the Bitcoin is something that is a dissenter from the Federal Reserve, in that the thing is, there's no Federal Reserve that is issuing the money, but the money is gaining value on its own in its independent market throughout the whole world. And there's more and more people that are becoming familiar with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that are using it for negotiation. Okay, so this here is an entirely different monetary system than what the Federal Reserve is. Okay, all of it, what?
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I want to follow the line of thought from David. He was asking this a pointed question. You know, what do we know about these guys? You know, how do you know that they want a world order where nobody thinks anything or they all think like them? You know, who are these guys, and have you talked to them? I don't know how.
Well, no, real simple. Now you say, have you talked to them? You make it sound like it's going to be a personal thing where I'm going to call them up on the telephone. The only thing is their publications are very visible if you search for them on the internet, whether you use Google or DuckDuckGo. I mean, Google supports them very much. So the thing is, their documentation is very visible on the internet. If you want, next time I can give you the name of the group. But the thing is, these people have all kinds of money. And the thing is, they're the ones that are organizing this whole thing. And you know, I mean, if you don't look into it yourself, you can't even see it. I mean, most people, they live a life in the realm of what they know and what they get, and hey, this is what I want, and that there is their, what do you call it, environmental habitation. You watch TV, and TV just teaches you, hey, this is all, you know, lovey-dovey. Oh, Jones, you know, he had a broken leg, and you know, Harry fixed it, and you know, now he's doing so well, and everybody loves him. And that there is the movement of the you know, of the TV programming, and also the news. They want to take and make everything so it's all fluff, and it's really not.
I have a theory about this. I have a theory about this, that there's the idea that these super powerful, perhaps they're powerful because they've become super wealthy, because they've created companies that are super influential, so they have superpowers. And then there's some people like George Soros in the background. So I have a theory of what's happening. I think that when you're in such businesses, you discover that you make more money when your market goes all over the globe. So you realize that it's good to have access to the globe, and so they're in favor of anything that will help their business, and that is going global. And so they don't get together in a boardroom together and say, let's take over the world. No,
like
it's
Dr.
something
Evil
that happens, like when the inventor of a certain mathematics, like calculus, they didn't get together, let's invent calculus, and there's Leibniz and there's Newton. Yes, let's use different forms of writing. Okay, yeah, and then they
well,
go, no,
talking about mathematics.
They had a problem, and they needed to come up with, how do I solve this problem? And so they developed their own style of mathematics independently, but it was towards the same kind of problem. So what's happening is they're not getting together and sinisterly, let's take over the world.
All right, mathematical David,
It just
go
happens.
ahead, and
It's
I would
happening
like to
naturally.
know.
Wait,
And then
number one,
people get paranoid about this. Oh, they're taking over the world, and we're going to have a new world order. Oh my gosh! No, it's just happening naturally. And then this conspiracy theorists can get fans.
Yeah, you can make a conspiracy out of anything.
BitChute channel to say, oh yes, this is happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can make a conspiracy out of
don't
trees
listen to
growing
them.
in the forest.
Don't listen. They're bought and paid for. Listen to me. Listen to.
Yeah. Okay, David,
Well,
where were you going with that
And it's
question?
causing
I
a kind of anxiety.
I don't even know what question I had, or
well,
whatever.
no, David, Math David, you were asking that question, a pointed question, and you were going somewhere with that question. I would like to hear that.
Where is this Math David?
Yeah, that's Mike.
Mike, I'm sorry. All right, I thought we had two Daves in there.
Are
So,
you
Mike,
part of the sinister conspiracy? Have you changed my name and my personality?
yes,
Is
yes.
someone going to show up at my door and give me a facial in a
A
moment?
new ID, a new driver license. Now from now on, you're David, Math David.
Okay.
Sorry about that. All right, so let's pursue that line of questioning. Yeah, it's a very good question. What? How do you know these guys want this or that?
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Okay.
The thing is, okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yep.
Go.
Yeah.
I think he wants a response from you, David.
Oh,
But
I give him
Well,
a response.
I know David's response because I know how he thinks. But I'm interested in your thoughts, Mike. How do you see this big cluster disaster where some people with a lot of money seem to be inclined to destroy our minds?
well, hear this from David, and occasionally I've heard it from other people, and it's a story that floats around.
Since we were in the caves.
But the what is it? The noosphere is filled with all kinds of stories
Mhm.
that float around. Most of them, I suspect, are more notable for their imagination than any necessary contact with reality. George Soros, I've read a few, news stories about him. I don't know a great deal about him, but the stories I have read about him are that he has tended to get into trouble with places like the Hungarian government because of his advocacy of a free press, one which the government does not control, and that he is very much on the list of bad people by a number of different governments because of this. And I look at this situation and I immediately see a situation in which it's obvious to me these people have a great deal of incentive to cut him down. So immediately, that's my reaction to.
That's a red flag, right? It's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. What is the deal with this guy? Why is he so bad, Dr. Evil? Well, maybe it's because he wants free speech. He wants people to be able to think clearly, as a matter of fact.
But he doesn't support that at all. The thing is, he doesn't support the people that he supports actually are against free speech. They're more for control, for mind control, for controlling what you think and how you live. That's George Soros.
What
You
evidence
just
do
explained
you
that. You
have?
just explained the total opposite of free speech, because the thing is, he supports all this here cancel culture right now, where the thing is on the internet, they're canceling out anybody that disagrees and looks at life in a different way than they do. I mean, Google and Facebook are right at the top of that, along with Twitter. I mean, what's wrong with a conversation of somebody that doesn't believe what everybody else believes? I mean, that there is what Socrates was all about. So now
There's nothing wrong
Socrates-
with that unless they, for example, they are violent or they incite to civil unrest, right?
Yeah, but the
I mean,
violence, right now you're looking at what's being portrayed. But the thing is, the violence over the past year has not come from the right. The violence has come from the left with Antifa in all these different cities who brought in and burned up
See,
all this
I
stuff.
always take the evidence, like Mike says, I take the evidence to the person. When I hear a guy that is inciting to violence and hatred,
Who's inciting violence and hatred?
do I have to give the name of the person that is at the forefront of the news right now because he said go out there and fight to the death, and because they stole this
Wait,
election,
who said
blah blah
that?
blah?
Who said that?
Trump?
Good.
I'll say the name.
Find me those exact words and send them to me. Give me
Oh,
a copy
boy.
of them right now. He never said that.
I'm not going to make a trial out of this one. I know what I
No.
heard, and
What?
I'm saying. Every time I hear that guy, it's like, wow, he wants to kick somebody's ass.
Well,
And
that's
I
because
can't follow people like that. I have,
No,
I
I
can't,
mean,
I make up my own mind. I don't
No,
know
you
about
don't.
Soros. I never
No,
hear
you
him
don't.
talking.
You're telling me just by what you're saying and everything. You listen to CNN all the time.
No, I
Goodbye.
just hear the guy live on TV,
No,
and
you're full of
I
bullshit.
look at a guy like that, and I said, no, this is a guy that I cannot follow. I cannot, and I'm listening to the man. I'm not listening to commentary about a man. So that's where I say that you know, the guy like that has to be cut off of the media. We need to denounce a guy that is pushing for violence and hatred. What the hell is wrong with this guy? Let's talk. Let's have dialectics. But you know, going around with a big bat does not fix our problems. I am against violence, and I am against conflict. I want harmony. I want
But
discussion.
at the end of the day, he said, "Everyone go home," and they all went home. So he has some
Oh, yeah,
crowd.
yeah.
He has
Okay,
some
yeah.
crowd
Yeah,
control.
yeah. Like
Amazing
4 hours later, I
influence.
was looking at TV when things were going. It's like, when is someone of authority going to get on TV and they have access to TV anytime they want? Anytime they want, they're going to get on all the channels and say, guys, get the hell out of there. This is unacceptable. This is not what I meant. Never. I never heard anything like that.
No,
While
but at the end of that day, he did say, "Everyone go home," and they
when
obeyed.
everybody was going home already. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know what
No,
I
but
see.
I heard people in the crowd say, "Oh, Trump said that we can go home. Okay, let's go home."
Come
So
on,
they're like
let's not
following him like
simplify
a cult,
this so much.
like a
We
cult
know what
figure.
we saw. We know what we
No,
saw.
but
You
I
know.
saw a snippet of a guy in the crowd that's for Trump, a Trumpist, saying, "Oh, Trump just said let's go home. Okay, let's go home." So they all
Listen,
went home.
I'm
That's how
not.
incredible. It's kind of like
For the record,
Hitler.
I am not a rightist or a leftist. I am a critical thinker. I'm a naturalist. I look at things, and I try to look for harmony, civility, common sense,
What happens to Mike?
justice. I don't know. I think
Mike left.
I pissed him off. But I have to
I
call
mean,
it
oh,
sometimes.
I
I have
got
to
the names
call this.
confused.
Eh,
David left.
Well, I'm sorry to see that, but Mike, maybe you can expound a little bit more. I think that's the direction you were going
We
into. It's like,
sense
what are you basing all these
it's
things
Luis
on?
Del
What is
Pino's
your
fault.
evidence?
Luis Del Pino, you cancel cultured David.
And I misnamed Mike. What a
Okay.
what a move.
All right. What are you going to tell me to chase me off?
Oh, I don't think I can chase you off, Mike.
Okay.
You're a scientist, and in a sense, so am I. And we both are looking for harmonic mathematics. You know, mathematics is trying to reveal the harmony of the universe, not find conflict in it. And on those bases, I don't think I'm going to chase you off. And if I do, I'll be confounded. I'll go, what did I say?
I don't think you'll get rid of me. I'm used to telling people in our writers' critique groups, take your best shot at me. I'm perfectly prepared to count everything you said.
I am not so openly spoken like this, but David was taking this. I mean, in the background of the conversation, he was criticizing this guy Soros, who I don't know, and I've never listened to him. I don't. As a matter of fact, now I'm going to make a point of trying to see if I can listen to his interviews or dissertations or when he's speaking by himself. But I have heard this gentleman that I named, that I was trying not to name, and I have heard what he said. Die. And then anybody can disagree with me on how I interpreted his words, but my common sense tells me that this guy was inciting to violence, to civil unrest, to the questioning of our democratic system, et cetera, et cetera. I know our system is not perfect. I'm no idiot, but at the same time, I'm not saying that it's imperfect enough that we have to go out there with guns and baseball bats and destroy the little democratic system that we have mustered to have in the last couple of 100 years.
Well, let me comment, since David is not here, and I will hopefully not offend anyone too badly. You know, before Trump ran for president, I was only vaguely aware that such a person existed. I do not have a TV. I almost never go to movies. I tend to have very little contact with popular culture. I remember watching the first debate that he was in with Hillary, and immediately I noticed a couple of things. One of the things that I noticed was he would get off his podium and come and crowd her.
Physically.
And the second thing was, at one point he started to answer some question that somebody asked, and then he got stopped. The answer was somehow or other not satisfactory. And he turned around and he began saying something that was a total contradiction to what he had said a moment before. So immediately,
you had suspicions.
Immediately, I could see that the logic or the facts in whatever it was that he was saying were not of consequence to him. What was of consequence was the effect which was produced on the listeners.
Yeah.
And immediately I classified him as being a type of personality which I have occasionally encountered in my life. And this is the sort of person to whom facts, laws, values are irrelevant. What is relevant is how can they say something that will influence other people to do what they want.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it completely. So it's not
Luis Del Pino scared away or cancel cultured David Norton. He left.
With all due respect.
Because David felt censored or something. Oh, remember Luis, last meetup when you said you had to go, like you usually leave after an hour, and and David thought that you were David thought that you felt like he was being censored, like, oh, I'm leaving too after you left because I feel like I've been censored by Luis because he left because he didn't want to hear my stuff.
I'm sorry about that. I never act in those ways. I am conciliant. I am conciliatory. I enjoy
no, but you left
dialectic.
because you had to go, not because
I had to go. Yeah.
We're here.
But Mike, I could not agree anymore with you that we need to stick with the facts. We need to we need to stick with the rational thought based on facts, and avoid at all cost this feeling of conflict that people such as the one that I mentioned before. I'm going to start using the same line as they do in Harry Potter, the one whose name we don't mention. And you describe perfectly that psychology of an individual that doesn't care about the facts. All he cares about getting results. It doesn't matter what is said or how it is said. I want the result. And there's a description,
that guy
psychological description for such an individual. We can go into that if it's interesting.
Yes, Rami.
Who Luis? Who is the individual in your cosmology who we shall not mention?
I'm not going to mention. I'm done.
Yes,
I said the name once, and somebody just ran out of the discussion. So let's go ahead and guess. let's guess who is it that is inciting to strife, civil unrest, confrontation,
But
violence, hatred, etc.
but you made
Do
it
we?
sound like he's the
Who can it be? Who can it be knocking at the door?
Did the Rolling Stones have sympathy for him?
They did not know him, although they had encountered people just like him, because we have about 1%, 2%, maybe 5% of the population fits that psychological profile. There, I'm not going to mention names. If it is not clear enough to be understood, then
Yes,
I
we
don't
were-
need to mention
we
the
were
name, because
talking-
mentioning the name is going to create this animosity. So I'll say
So
the sin, but not the
we were
sinner.
talking about cancel culture. No, we were talking about the Great Reset, and he didn't quite define it, but then that reminded me of cancel culture. But I was wondering if that's similar to the Great Reset. And on that, then we got into globalism. Like there's the conspiracy that these elite people are trying to come together and make a new world order and control our everything, like one currency, one way of thinking, one everything, kind of like George Orwell's 1984 kind of thing. And then who's behind it? We wanted to know who it was. Oh, it's guys like George Soros, Bill Gates, Facebook's founder, Zuckerman, guys like that. So they're able to censor people like that. Well, they're actually trying to reduce misinformation. So if people are producing a lot of misinformation, like on COVID-19 and or something political, then they're trying to I don't know how they can remove them or block them. But then people that are producing that misinformation get upset and say, see, they're destroying our freedom of speech. And
Point of order, Jairo. Misinformation is not produced. Disinformation is propagated. Disinformation is produced. Misinformation is the transmittal of disinformation.
yes, I use the word misinformation. Yeah. So there, in misinformation, there's a misinformant. But disinformation, it gets propagated. So maybe social media places like Facebook and maybe YouTube are with their algorithm, maybe are blocking certain channels or certain groups or certain people, and so those people get upset and say, see, that's evidence of cancel culture, of no, of what is it, the Great Reset, that's against our freedom of speech. But freedom of speech is only guaranteed in the government situations, right? Like if it's a private company, they can do whatever they want, right?
I suggest that we take the draft that I suggested for our conversation for
What was it?
a Saturday. You can find it back in the meetup. I shared it with you and David. I haven't seen Luis online in the meetup, so otherwise I would loop him, Mike in as well. Now that I know that he's here, and I'll send them the draft as well for the discussion topic.
What's that word that you came up with that starts with the letter R? Or not that you came up with, but you posted somewhere in meetup. I was trying to.
How long ago?
A few weeks ago. What starts with the letter R? that you mentioned earlier in this meetup also, but I forget what that word is.
We can fill it in later after we've had a chance to review the YouTube.
All right, guys,
Anyway.
it's 8:15 or somewhere about.
It's bedtime.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin. Thank you, Mike, for your the pointed questions. I think it brought a good clarification to the conversation. You were able to, by asking a proper question, I think we were able to at least clearly talk about things that were not being talked about. I think it's the first and last time I'm going to mention the name that I mentioned. That's what we were talking about. From now on, if I say something and somebody says, "Who are you talking about?" and it is so clear who I'm talking about, I'm going to say, "Listen, I don't need to answer that question. If you don't know who I'm talking about, you don't know what I'm talking about."
It is he who must not be named.
That's right. From now on, that is the way I'm going to talk about that one or anyone.
Isn't that a
just
form of
like him.
censorship?
No, I censor myself in a sense. I censor myself. I talk about concepts and ideas, and I don't talk about things or people. And then so we stay at the world of ideas, the idealism, and I don't besmudge, or I don't stain the conversation by going at the level of naming names. Do we have to name names? You know, it's like no way.
I think that the guy that you now no longer name, the way you described him offended the guy that I can name, David Norton, and he laughed.
Listen, I think the world of David is a wonderful human being, and I enjoy our conversations every Saturday. It is clear we have some different ways of understanding reality and living life, but that's what makes us human. Reality sees itself one conscience at a time. The whole sees itself through parts. All we're trying to establish in a Zoom is to have the parts kind of understand each other.
Yes,
because we don't know it all.
Is the big elephant, and we're blind.
So the last thing that I want to do is to insult or make David feel bad about something. All we're talking about is the world being dominated by some Dr. Evil, or 3 or 4 of those that have a lot of money? Are they conspiring to make us stupid? Are we conspiring to make ourselves stupid? Because, you know, is it the media or is it the receptor of the media? If I watch a thing, am I smart? If I watch another thing, am I stupid? Who decides? Am I free to be free from any conspiracy? I mean, those are the things we're talking about. And I know that we have a disagreement in the worldview in general, but these conversations are precisely about human beings sharing ideas, building a better understanding, creating a harmonious society where we as individuals can understand each other while we may not always agree. That's what our democracy is about, right? Go ahead, Rami.
So I have to ask one question, because I'm still without definite certainty with regard to who it is that you are not mentioning. And I know that I'll be able to go back and check YouTube after the fact and find out. This question is going to help me determine, because depending on who it is that you're referring to actually has consequences. So I'm going to ask one targeted question, then I'll perhaps explain the reason why I asked the question. Was this a person who recently held political office?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then
we have 435 representatives and 100. So, you have a lot of choice there. 100 senators. We have
we have those in the legislative, we have those in the judicial, and we have those in the executive.
So you have your choice about
then there's local
1,000 politicians that I could have been referring to.
The super minority.
There's the mayor of Orlando.
So
is it?
Yeah.
Who's the mayor of Orlando?
Buddy Dyer.
But there's another mayor.
That's of the county.
That's the mayor of Orange County.
And yeah, I mean, I didn't know there were mayors of counties.
Well, he was originally a chairman. The office was originally.
I thought a mayor was for a town or a city, but now there's a mayor of a county.
This is a very informative meeting.
We're deeply understanding our democracy. What a thing of beauty. How is your publication going before I go? The book that you are either finishing or you have published, how is that going? You felt it was important. You had something important to say in your book about some mathematical concept.
Well, I am still reading manuals and trying to figure out how to get past the publishing machinery at Ingram Spark. Part of the problem is they want you to use some nice standard Windows software, and I use essentially nothing but Linux. Also,
Isn't there a conversion tool from Linux to Windows?
it's not that simple.
No? Okay.
Okay, that doesn't describe it.
Especially because you write mathematics and those are
Yeah,
symbols
and-
and stuff, and trying to put formulas into words or into a line, that's
Do you use LaTeX?
And I'm using something called LaTeX.
Oh,
for all
LaTeX.
my writing.
I pronounce it latex.
it's close enough.
That's how it looks as though it ought to be pronounced, but the TEX, I think, probably goes back to Greek, and the pronunciation is tech, as in technical.
Plus their symbols of their words look like mathematical symbols today. So their letters look like, mathematical language. So
yeah, and one of the things I'm trying to do is figure out how to use some of the more advanced tools of LaTeX to put my manuscript into exactly the kind of form that the printing machinery at Ingram Spark can read.
Yes.
There are all sorts of little technical problems.
I am interested in knowing what kind of following do you have within the mathematical community of your idea, because it's probably a novel idea, some kind of a different perspective on a mathematical problem or a solution. How are you getting traction on it?
Oh, I maybe have 1.5 followers. I'm not at all
Good.
sure.
That's better than 0.
1.5.
Well, I'm
What
the
about
one.
you?
You're the half.
I'm the one. Somebody else is the half.
You bamboozled somebody with your theory.
But this is
I'm halfway there.
branch of mathematics which is insufficiently well known to mathematicians and is better known to mathematical physicists, to computer scientists, to certain engineers. And I'm trying to put a book out that will make it more accessible to mathematicians on the level of beginning graduate students or advanced undergraduates. And I'm doing that simply because it looks to me to be such beautiful material. It is, and such useful material. It really ought to be taught, I think, very, very widely, even at an undergraduate level. So that's why I'm doing it.
And is there a word or title for that?
It's called geometric algebra and geometric calculus.
Okay. So algebra and calculus from the geometrical perspective.
No.
I tried.
What's going on in that word usage is more subtle than that. If you were to start talking with people in the know, you would start to tell them things like, well, what we're really doing is we're making use of Clifford algebra over the reals and Clifford analysis, and we're doing it in a manifold with a given signature, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, too much for me.
Okay.
Too much for me, unfortunately. But the application, I'm sure, is going to be wonderful.
Yeah, well, as I say, from my point of view, it's some very beautiful mathematics, And it has the property that if properly presented, it can be made accessible at an undergraduate level for math majors. And I think this is worth doing. And I think potentially it's extremely useful.
What
Well,
makes it beautiful?
How many hours do you have to listen?
guys, I'm
Yes.
gonna have to go before you get too deep.
The symmetry, the simplicity, the power.
Well, what it does is it captures in its algebra more of geometric properties, pictorial properties, than most other branches of mathematics. And it does it in,
I knew it had to do with geometry.
yes.
Forms, you know. Anyway,
Form is
I'm
emptiness.
gonna let you go.
Emptiness is form.
And form is emptiness. Yes. We can talk about that. I can talk about that. It's not. It can be talked about without mathematical formulas. Although I am pretty sure that mathematics somehow, maybe it does already. I don't know. Describes that how 0 is 1 and 1 is 0, essentially. So they may look different geometrically, formally, but in essence, 0 is 1, 1 is 0, and quantum mechanics is telling
One
us.
is a squashed zero.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the
one-
nod no.
One becomes so quickly the other that we don't know when 0 is 0 and 1 is 1.
Zero is a stretched out one.
I think you're high on superposition, Mr. Del Pino.
No, what is much more important in mathematics is the fact that you can switch between radically different points of view, and it is not at all disturbing. Sometimes I will be playing in the fields of Euclidean geometry and parallel lines will not meet.